Hi, I'm Mara Webster with In Creative Company, and thank you so much for tuning into one of our talks today. I'm so excited today to talk to the fantastically talented Marlee Matlin all about her current movie, Coda. And first off, I love how much you were already a fan of Sean Haydar's work from the movie Tallulah. And so when you first read the scripts, did you start to already have a sense of what her vision might be in terms of how she was really going to bring the script to life and carry it off the page? And if so, how did that help you in starting to think about your character early on?
As you said, I was a big fan of Sean, her work in Tallulah, and I absolutely really connected with what she presented on the screen. Her choice of framing her work with the actors, collaborating with them, and even her editing, the whole package. And it was just something I was a fan of. And so then when I read the script of Coda, knowing that Sean wrote this and would be directing this, then I thought, you know what, that was gold. That was absolutely gold. So I took advantage of having seen her work and looking at the script and having loved this script for Coda, loving the story, plus the fact that Sean was going to be putting this vision on the screen, and then she's a woman. And not to sound biased, but I like working with women. When we first met, we had an opportunity to talk about the vision, and we connected immediately. And it was a breakfast that we left cold because we were talking for 3 hours. And she talked about her vision. I asked her questions, what made her want to do this film, what it was that what it drew her to our culture, to our community. And she even was signing, even though I had my interpreter with me there. She was signing. So I understood that she was as passionate about Coda as she was about her previous projects, about culture, about music, about the actors, the whole package. So I knew I was in the right place. I knew that I would be in the right hands, and it would be great to work with her. And as it turned out, I was right.
And with that in mind as well, it and how collaborative your relationship with her was, did that give you a lot of freedom and space in terms of shaping a lot of details of who Jackie was? And if so, what were some of those details that you were really able to bring to your performance and to her as a character?
Well, first of all, her job as director clearly was to um, know exactly what it was she was going to bring to the set, what it was she wanted to go with the story, how it is she wanted to tell the story. At the same time, she was cognizant of the actors, very cognizant. And I think what was important to me was the fact that, as you said, we collaborated together as a director. And it helped that she wrote the script as well as being the one who's going to direct it. So we thought along, our thoughts were sort of aligned and about who Jackie would be. She asked me who I thought Jackie would be. She thought, where was it that you would like to go with Jackie? How would it be that she met her husband? All the questions that I typically do when I develop my characters. And she was asking those questions of me. So Sean was the one who really I felt comfortable in giving me the freedom to create, to improvise, to ask questions. And there was no feeling of uncomfortableness. It was, for me as an actor, it was very liberating to be able to take a character that she wrote and not only play it as I would, or the choices I would make as an actor, but yeah, simple as that.
I also absolutely love the family dynamic that all of you bring to your performances together, and in particular with the fact there are so many scenes with all four of you together, even if it's just sitting having dinner at the table. And there's such a great comedic timing and sense of humor within that rapport, at the same time as really emotional and heartfelt moments. And so I was interested in how you all worked to really build up that dynamic, that chemistry, and that history that they all have with each other as part of their backstory and relationship.
Well, of course, as actors, we approach work as actors the same way as anybody else would for seeing if we're sitting at a table or having a conversation and play it for the humor or the drama. But in this case, what you see is a film that couldn't be any more authentic in its portrayal of this family. Not only because we are deaf actors in deaf roles, but because the story itself was authentically told. And this is just one of many, many stories that are out there that transpire in our households, that deaf people in the hearing community live. We're just people, basically, but and we have similar loves and desires and lives, and it's just a matter of finding that and being able to portray this family. And the dynamics in this family come across so clearly, and they're the same as they would be in real life. It's just a matter of a different perspective as the culture goes. But what she did on the screen, I mean, it was unusual these days, I would think. It's just not something you would have seen every day, a film like this portraying a family like this. So people have been excited about it. And at the same time, I want to be able to say to people, this is not unusual in terms of, it's not something that just came into the scene yesterday, this kind of story. It's been going on for thousands of years, if you want to say so.
Yeah. It's also a film which really, for the character of Ruby, is very much a coming of age journey as she's trying to figure out who she's going to be as her own individual entity as a character. But also for all of them, there's such an evolution in all of these characters. And when you looked at Jackie and the journey that she takes from initially just such fear of the idea of losing her daughter to coming to really accept and support this journey that Ruby's going on, how did you think about the evolution that you wanted to bring into her as a character throughout your performance?
In Jackie's case, I understood how it was that she was basically concerned with maintaining her daily family life, going to work, trying to make a living, trying to make ends meet, taking care of all the things domestic and business. And she relied on Ruby for communication with the hearing community. That was just her expected role, is something that she fully accepted. So then when it came to the point when Ruby said, I want to sing and go to the school, she said, well, wait a minute, sing? You've never sung before. I didn't even know you had that passion. You can sing. That is the beginning of Jackie coming to the understanding, because she never realized that Ruby needed her own identity, that Ruby was coming into her own, that she had a talent, and that she had a right to make her own decisions about her life. And without realizing it, she took her daughter for granted, not in a bad way, but it's just the way that things were, accepting her daughter as the interpreter. So at first, Jackie is thrown, and she's afraid of change. She's afraid of letting go because she is dependent on her daughter so long. And how is it that she's going to be able to survive? But Ruby helps Jackie learn that it's okay to let her daughter go, that it's okay as a mother to make the transition to be more independent. And it's okay as she goes along to find out how she can grow. So there was more to life than Jackie realized, and you see that journey.
Yeah. The script also gives a lot of little details and nuanced elements about Jackie's backstory, like when she talks to her daughter about her own relationship with her mother and the fact that they weren't very close, or the pageant that she won when she was younger. And then how do you work to take those details and really develop extensive backstory, and how in depth do you like to go in terms of how many details you want to flesh out beyond what the script gives you?
I like to envision, and I like to delve into what ifs about a character, because as an actor, I'm responsible to develop a portrayal on the screen that you can connect with. And that's where Sean came in, and we had an opportunity to discuss Jackie's backstory, and I had an opportunity to talk to Troy, who played Frank, what our backstory was as husband and wife. Where was it that, what was the foundation for this family? What was it based on? What schools did we go to? What kind of hobbies were we bowlers? Whatever it may be. But it's fun as an actor to be able to create those backstories, because you can then use those and apply them to your work. So in that scene with Jackie and Ruby, where she opens up her heart to her daughter, being a mother, as a mother of four, I understand where Jackie was coming from. I had a great upbringing. My parents were very supportive. I had two older brothers who were hearing. but in terms of communication, we didn't quite have 100% communication. Not to blame my parents, it's just that the way it was back then. And in all honesty, I didn't know that I had the right to ask for example, interpreters. I didn't know much about opportunities that as a person who was deaf, I could do. But that was, again, back then. So in talking about Jackie, I thought about how, well, okay, fine. Jackie was praised for being a beautiful girl, and that was basically it. It was sort of as a means to appease her and sort of check that box to make her feel good. But of course, Jackie needed much more than that. And that in turn developed into a fear that when, and if she should have a baby that happened to be hearing, because she was looked at as only pretty, and no one made the time to really communicate or interact with her, she thought, well, if I had a hearing child, the same thing is going to repeat. So that fear was expressed, not being able to teach her hearing child how to speak, perhaps because she's not able to speak. Or again, listen, any Coda would say to you that we just take life as it comes. And some are responsible as interpreters, some don't take on that responsibility. We come in all different shapes and sizes as Codas. So it's a very touching scene where Jackie expresses her fears to her daughter. And I don't know if I answered your question or not, but anyway.
You did, and so many other beautiful details, because I think that's one of my favorite scenes in the film between the two of you. And you mentioned Troy Kotsur, who plays your husband in the film, and I wanted to talk about working with him because I love how effusively you always speak about watching him work and watching his performances on stage. And so when you were starting to think about the relationship dynamic that you wanted the two of them to have, because these are two people that clearly love each other so much, there's so much sexual chemistry between them as well that comes through, and they're so emotionally connected with one another. I was interested in how the two of you worked on scenes together, but knowing his work beforehand, how that really helped you in shaping a lot of that relationship on screen as well.
Yeah, I mean, we had been friends for the longest time, and I'm probably his number one fan. And his wife probably might disagree. She would say that she was his number one fan, but he is one of the most talented actors that I know of, who I had the opportunity to work with. His work ethic is very, very unbelievable. He's very dedicated to his work ethic. I know, and I knew that he was perfect for the role of Frank, because as soon as I saw the script, he was the person that first came to my mind. I knew it was Troy. It had to be Troy, and that was it. And he is truly one of a kind. I was surprised that all these years Hollywood hadn't really picked up on that. The fact that he is just so, I mean, it's bizarre that he wasn't on people's radar, that he wasn't in the mainstream of Hollywood as an actor. Again, I think after this movie, though, he probably will be. He's just, his talent is so God-given. It's like, as an actor, he is the king of improvisation. And he really works with you. I found that working with him myself. I knew for the longest time that if we had an opportunity to work together, we would hit it out of the ballpark. And that's what happened.
And then when it comes to working with Amelia in the film as well, I mean, she had to learn such an extraordinary amount of skills, from singing to learning to be on a fishing boat. I know that she also learned ASL as well for the movie. But to work with someone like that who gives so much of themselves, when you're filming moments like the conversation between the two of them in the bedroom about her fears when Ruby was first born, what does that really give you as a scene partner, having someone that just exudes so much presence in the moment?
Oh, no, it really did. She looked at me as, first of all, as an actor. And she didn't tread lightly. She just went for it when we had our scene together, as if somehow we'd always known each other. She really approached her character professionally, but she also gave a great deal of trust in me, and I trusted her in return. And I knew that what she was getting herself into, which would be a lot. I mean, she had to wear a lot of hats, but she did it with aplomb, with ease. I mean, it looked easy maybe to you as a person watching the film. And if she struggled, she hit it well, because I didn't see any of that. She trusted herself to be able to deliver. And one thing that I wish that we didn't have a chance to do, is not every time, but a lot of times, is that when we would wrap a scene, she would stay in character and signed, which I really appreciated. But sometimes we would talk, and she would then go back to her British accent. And I'd say, no, 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 go back to your American accent, because I can understand you better speaking in an American accent. And we would laugh about that. She is truly darling. I mean, she's very professional. She's hardworking. She came prepared, knowing her lines, and yet at the same time, she was always willing to ask questions. And she really made it a point of being part of the cast from day one.
One of the other scenes that I wanted to ask you about is the scene where Jackie and the rest of her family go to watch Ruby perform for the first time. And I love that moment where you're just looking around the room, watching everybody else experience her performance and respond to it. And that really felt like a transformational moment for Jackie, in just the immense pride that you see welling up from watching other people and seeing how everybody's responding in the room. And so I wanted to ask about filming that scene for you and really finding that really rich emotional trajectory of her journey in that moment.
It's interesting that I can tell you, uh, deaf actors, the three of us chose to play the scene how we, I don't know necessarily, we played it as if we weren't really part of what was going on there, because clearly we weren't standing on the same level as the actors who could hear, who could pay attention, who could hear them singing. We approached it differently. So as actors, Jackie, I thought to myself, okay, fine, I have a beautiful red dress, and I look nice, and my daughter liked the dress that I was wearing, because being a mother of a teenager, they never like what you do. But so Jackie is very happy that Ruby likes what she's wearing. And then there's her daughter Ruby on stage singing, and everybody's watching, and I'm looking at everybody's reactions to gauge how good of a singer she is. And like, oh, okay, great. Well, they're crying, oh, they're smiling. And so then that helps me realize, oh, my daughter is a good singer. And because, I mean, what parent would not be proud of their child up on stage singing, of course. And then at the same time, in this particular scene, we wanted to be able to convey how the Rossi family might not be, clued into the fact that they could have asked for an interpreter for the performance. It wasn't something they were clued into. Or maybe there was no interpreter available in this little town who could interpret the performance on stage and live. I did. For my kids, I would ask for an interpreter, and the school provided in the interpreter. But in this case, in this family, in this town, that may not have happened. So Jackie is not bored, but she's just sitting there, not being able to, I mean, she's sitting and watching, but it's not something she can hear. All she sees are moving mouths. So as an actor, I decided that I would improvise what Jackie would do. So I said to my husband, what are we doing for dinner? And Troy picked up on that. He knew exactly where I was going. And he jumped back in and said, well, maybe we can make some spaghetti. And I said, well, wait, we have to go shop for some. And the conversation went on from there. And that was probably something that would have happened in real life. The fact that, that's what would happen.
And because you've described working on this film as being a space where you were really in your element, because you were getting the opportunity to work with other deaf actors, there were multiple translators on set, and not just Sean and Amelia, but a lot of the cast and crew as well. It sounds like all learned sign language. Did that shift and change anything in terms of the way that you were able to just focus more centrally on the craft and on details of your performance than you sometimes get the opportunity to on other sets at all?
Well, it's funny because all those years I've always been the only deaf person on the set, or there might be one or two other actors in scenes that I'm working on. And being that I might have been the only deaf person on the set, it was usually just me and the interpreter at lunchtime, or I'm in my trailer, doing my stuff, whatever it may be. And it got a little lonely. And I of course I talked to cast members, but again, I had to depend on the interpreter. And it was work. It's a little bit more work than it would be for other actors, who, to get that, to be 100% comfortable with what's going on. But if you're talking about workload as an actor, and on those other programs, I've had no issues. And I was very fortunate to have worked over the years for the last 35 years. This time, however, it was different because I didn't have to depend on an interpreter. I just was me. And it was just different. There was a different vibe. It was a different energy. And I'm not to say that I'm going to diminish the other work that I've done in the past. It's just different, a different vibe altogether. And yeah, I was really fortunate to have worked with wonderful actors before Coda, truly. And I look forward to doing what we did on Coda in many ways. Both situations, both working with hearing actors and deaf actors.
And I was so excited by the news of your upcoming NBC workplace comedy set in the world of sign language interpreting. It sounds like such a fantastic setup for a show. And having worked on so many projects and really seeing how the person at the top and the creative team leading the charge really set the tone and the environment, what are the elements that you really look forward to bringing forth into creating the environment and tone and the type of set that you want to create for your cast and crew on a show like this?
Well, I'd like to be able to, and I'm looking forward to having people who have, the opportunity to see what they're accustomed to in a workplace comedy, but seen from a different perspective. Seeing what happens in real life, but through a comedic lens. I want to be able to display the comedy that takes place in our community. And in terms of comedy, not as a means to make fun of, but more to make light of the situations, of the characters, to know that, that I like those cringeworthy moments that happen in real life and put them on the screen. So now we're in the process of writing those and developing those. And I'm very excited to be able to show my comedic side in the comedy arena.
And when it came to working on Coda and playing Jackie, what were the elements that you found really challenged and taught you the most from the entire experience?
I think there was one scene in particular that I found very, very challenging in Coda, and one I actually had to struggle with. And it's a scene where, and in fact, Sean saw me struggle with this, to the point where I was a bit upset playing Jackie. But again, to be clear, it's understandable because it's Jackie's point of view. But I still had to struggle with it, and I still had to deliver these lines. And that's the scene when Ruby said, "I want to sing," and I put her down by saying, and in fact, I diminished her desire, and I said, "Well, if we were blind, would you want to be a painter?" Which is probably one of the most selfish things one could say, a parent could say to their child, whether they're deaf or hearing. And I think the mother in me really was appalled at Jackie by the comment that she made. Why are you doing that, Jackie? But at the same time, I knew where Jackie was coming from. Music wasn't part of her life. It wasn't her thing at home. Her life was all about fishing and cooking and watching and supporting each other. And then suddenly Ruby brings in this idea of music, which threw her for a curve. And then that's how she dealt with it.
It's such a beautiful performance in the movie, and I thought it was a really wonderful film. So, congratulations on everything with that. And thank you so much for sharing all of this, Marlee.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.